watching Inside Thunder Basketball with Darnell Mayberry from the Opubco Studios in Oklahoma City. I'm Mike Sherman. Darnell, our Thunder beat writer, is joining us from East Rutherford, New Jersey, where tonight the Oklahoma City Thunder faces the worst team in the NBA, the New Jersey Nets. Darnell, is it fair to say that the schedule is about ready to soften up?
It's very fair to say. You look at Saturday, you go back to Saturday's game against Charlotte. They came into the Ford Center 11-16. They were just 1-11, 1-12 on the road. The Thunder beat them to make them 1-13 on the road. So that was the start of the slate. Jersey comes into the game 2-28. They've only won one of those games at home, and that was over Charlotte, that same Charlotte team that Thunder just beat. So this schedule is real easy for the Thunder right now. And you look at some of these teams coming up: New Jersey, Washington. They've got a Utah team at home that they already beat in Utah. Milwaukee, Chicago. So these some of the Eastern Conference teams that they're going to be facing now. They're going to hit this Eastern Conference stretch, and they're 8-3 going into the New Jersey game against Eastern Conference teams. So this is time for them to gain some ground.
Darnell, a big story in the Thunder's recent play has been the performance of Russell Westbrook, who hit a rough patch there for a couple weeks, but in the past 4 or 5 games has gone virtually without a turnover. Talk about his play.
I think you have to look at some of the more favorable matchups that he's had. Dallas, an older Jason Kidd. Detroit, he had smaller Will Bynum and sort of an out-of-control Rodney Stuckey, who didn't have some of his offensive weapons around him. Houston, he had Aaron Brooks, who he could take advantage of a little bit because he's stronger than him and taller than him. Lakers, same thing with Derek Fisher, an older point guard. And in Phoenix, Steve Nash is not regarded as one of the better defenders in the league. So he's had some better matchups. Raymond Felton last Saturday in the Ford Center. He's had some better matchups, even though they played a few better teams over this last 6 games. But also I'd point to Russell's aggressiveness. He's gone back to being aggressive as an attacker. He's attacking the rim more, creating contact, sort of calling his own number a little bit more, and he's thinking a lot less out there on the court, going back to some of the things we saw him do last year, and I think that's turning out well for him.
Is there anything involving motivation? The Thunder just went out last week and acquired a young point guard in Eric Manor. Not a guy they're bringing in to compete with Russell Westbrook at all, but somebody who would like some minutes and somebody with a lot of promise.
Eric Manor, I think, is definitely going to push Russell Westbrook, but like you said, I don't think fans in any way should read into that as he's going to be Russell Westbrook's replacement. Russell Westbrook is averaging almost 18 points per game, almost 8 assists, and about 5-6 rebounds over his last 6 games. And those are almost his numbers for the season, right at 16, 6, and 5. So there's not many guys in the history of this league who have done that in just their second season in the league. I mean, you look at some of the guys he's in company with: Chris Paul, Allen Iverson, Isaiah Thomas. Some of those guys are potential Hall of Famer or future Hall of Famers that Russell Westbrook has joined in terms of the numbers that he's putting up in only his second season. So I don't think Russell Westbrook is going anywhere. Eric Manor is just a very solid backup option.
Darnell, let's keep talking about some of the moves the Thunder's made recently. The other day they sent DJ White to Tulsa. This is a guy, DJ White, Big Ten Player of the Year at Indiana, a guy they had a lot of promise for, a guy and hopes for, a guy whose rookie season was wrecked by surgery, and now he's headed off to Tulsa. Will we ever see him in the Thunder rotation?
That's an interesting question because he wasn't able to get in because of his rookie injury to his jaw, and then this year it looked like he was going to face a hard time when Tom Thomas came, and they got Nick Collison coming back and Jeff Green already at power forward as the starter. But then a guy named Serge Ibaka came up and emerged from nowhere and played a lot more than anyone thought he probably would, and stole the minutes from DJ White. So now he's in Tulsa trying to continue to refine his game, and who knows when we'll see him in the lineup. But one thing is for sure, the Thunder is high on him. They really like what he brings to the table as an offensive player and as a rebounder. He needs to work on his interior defense, his man-on-man defense. But the good thing for the Thunder is they still have another 2 years of options on him where they can retain him, and they don't have to rush. They can still be patient with him. So I think that's how they're looking at it.
Okay, talking about roster moves, a guy who'll never see the floor for the Thunder, let alone even put on a jersey, is Matt Harper. He came over in the Eric Manor trade. He comes in with a salary of between $6 and $7 million, and it's an expiring contract. How do you think Sam Presti will be using Harper, especially as the trade deadline approaches?
Well, I think Sam will definitely dangle Matt Harper's contract. I mean, everyone knows throughout the league that they just acquired a very valuable asset in that expiring contract, one that if a team acquires, they won't have to pay much on because insurance will have kicked in after Matt Harper misses 41 consecutive games. He's already at about the 30 mark. So by February 18th, the trading deadline, teams are basically not going to have to be on the hook for much of that contract at all. So that's something that's really going to entice teams to who are looking to shed some salary. The Thunder could bring a player in here, another young player in here from a team who, say like or in Orlando. Marcin Gortat is a name that is popular with a lot of fans, a big man who's not getting the playing time in Orlando. Maybe Orlando and the Thunder could figure something out. But one thing's for certain, Presti's not going to swing a deal that just to do it. He's going to make sure that whatever deal is done is going to help this team now and in the future.
Okay, Darnell, we're talking about the Thunder, and now we're shifting gears finally to the schedule. As you said, Monday night in East Rutherford, New Jersey against the Nets. They go Tuesday night in Washington, D.C., the MCI Center, your old stomping grounds, against the Washington Wizards. They're back home in Oklahoma City Thursday for the New Year's Eve game against the Utah Jazz. A sort of a point of change last year. They had a big win on New Year's Eve, kind of turned the team around. And then they go Saturday night to Milwaukee. Darnell, as you think about how things are different from last year, it seems remarkable how much this team has turned things around. What to you has been the single biggest factor in the change from this year to last?
I think defense. When you look at the way that they're playing defense now, it's a lot more inspired. It's a lot more effective. They were giving up over 100. They gave up over 100 points per game last year. They're giving up in the 90s this year. They're holding teams to fewer attempts from the field. They're creating more turnovers. They're one of the league leaders in block shots of all things. I mean, we've all talked about how this team needs an interior presence and someone that's going to protect the paint. And here comes this team that's all suddenly a top 5, top 6 team in block shots. So you look at the way that they've performed defensively, I think that spurred a lot of their growth and their momentum this season. And in the way that they played on the road, I mean, they have a chance to get their 8th victory tonight. They only had 8 road victories all of last season, so they're obviously well ahead of pace. I think they're more confident and more comfortable in their abilities and playing with each other. Now that Jeff Green and Kevin Durant are in their second year or third seasons and Russell Westbrook is in his second season, I think they're all getting a little more comfortable with each other and their own abilities out there on the court.
Thanks, Darnell. That's all for this edition of Inside Thunder Basketball with Darnell Mayberry, but you can stay with the best coverage team anywhere, every day at News OK and every morning in the Oklahoman.